I'm gonna make this very simple for you, Dan. Men should not play sports against women. I'm not gonna get into all the bullshit that's going on out here in the world today. If anybody thinks that, I think they're stupid. I'm not, like I say, I support the gay community 100%. I support the transgender community 100%. But I do not, under any circumstances, under zero, think that men should play sports against women. And if anybody have a problem with that, they're going to have to get over it, because I'm not going to change my...
I saw a video of Enes Kanter saying that he is declaring himself as a WNBA prospect. So he posted this on his social media. He said, if simply declaring who you are is all that's required, then I meet every single requirement necessary to compete in the WNBA. And he basically says, based on the current guidelines, I can and am officially declaring my eligibility for the upcoming WNBA draft in April 2027. Like, I don't know whether to laugh. I don't know whether to cry, because like I've said in other videos, this league is the anything but basketball league. The storylines around this league are never about basketball. And I didn't realize what I was signing up for by covering this league to the extent that I have been covering it for the past 3 years. Like, I actually like sports. I don't want to talk about politics. I don't want to talk about drama and negativity. And it's literally, that's the thing that's in your face.
Charles Barkley just looked into a camera and basically told the WNBA they're about to get sued into the ground. And the wild part is, he's not entirely wrong. What started as a joke video from a retired NBA center has turned into one of the messiest weeks the league has ever had, with lawyers getting involved, sponsors getting nervous.
Oh my gosh, it's happening. A former NBA star has now declared himself a prospect for the WNBA. This is Enes Kanter. He is 6'10", 250 pounds. He now says that he has reviewed all of the eligibility requirements and criteria for the WNBA and has decided to declare himself eligible for the 2027 WNBA draft.
Yo, shit just got real, y'all. If this is true, Enes Kanter Freedom said, you know what? It's time for the WNBA to put up or shut up. They want to talk about, they believe inclusivity and exclusion is never the answer, and there's not even a number big enough of people other than women, other than biological women who are playing in women's sports for it to matter, for all this fuss and all this, you know, all these people to be looking at it like a problem. Shit just got real. And
Enes Kanter Freedom, the former NBA center known for getting pushed out of the league over his outspoken political stances, posted a video declaring himself eligible for the 2027 WNBA draft. He didn't scream. He didn't clown around. He read a calm, almost legal-sounding statement straight to camera, the kind of tone you'd expect.
Consideration and reviewing the current eligibility guidelines, I am officially declaring myself a WNBA prospect. If simply declaring who you are is all that's required, then I meet every single requirement necessary to compete in the WNBA. My team and I have carefully examined the WNBA's eligibility criteria and governing framework surrounding self-identification and inclusion. Based on the current guidelines, I can and am officially declaring my eligibility for the upcoming WNBA draft in May 2027.
What made Kanter's move so hard to dismiss is that he never once said he was mocking anyone. He said it outright in the same video that I am definitely not here to mock, make fun of, or disrespect any community or personal choices. I'm simply asking.
I'm transgender. I'm a woman. I identify as sometimes identifying as a woman for purposes of basketball, professional basketball. So I'll be declaring for the WNBA draft in 2027.
Only thing I want to say is, what happened to the people that made content, the people that wore t-shirts that wanted men to play with women? Where did they go? I've been looking for them. People, hey, where's Cheryl Reeve at with some t-shirts? Where them content creators at, man? This would be such a good idea if Caitlin Clark had him as a teammate. Where all y'all go now? Y'all been real quiet around here, bro. Real quiet. What the hell is going on?
Then it got even messier. Hours after Kanter's video hit, former Houston Rockets first-round pick Royce White went on Fox News and did the same thing, except louder and with less patience for nuanced, I'm transgender, I'm a woman. I identify as two former NBA players, both over 6 feet 8 inches, both former first-round picks, both suddenly identifying their way into a women's league within the same 24 hours. Kanter, for what it's worth, has said in follow-up interviews that he's fully prepared to actually show up if the league somehow lets this go all the way, half joking that he's already working on his crossover. At that point, this wasn't a one-off joke anymore, that IT was starting to look like a coordinated statement, and the internet treated it that way immediately.
This could get interesting. Royce White, who is a former NBA player and a Republican candidate for U.S. Senate, has decided to declare for the WNBA draft as a transgender individual. And he is testing to see exactly what the left is going to do. Now, I'm sure that many on the left are already going to cry foul over this because he looks, walks, and talks like a man. And I think that this is hopefully going to educate quite a few of them on what we have all been saying regarding this situation. Because this guy is a former NBA player, and it is realistically a situation where if they do accept him, it is going to heavily tilt the scales in favor of whatever team he ends up on. Now, if they end up rejecting him entirely, the left will have proved our point. So this is an interesting trap that the WNBA has been put in, as well as the left in the United States.
Reaction was instant, and it was everywhere on every app, in every group chat, spilling over into mainstream news within a single news cycle. The clips racked up hundreds of millions of views combined across every platform, and the comment sections turned into a genuine war zone, with people arguing not just about basketball, but about fairness, identity, and where satire is allowed to end. Some people thought it was the funniest thing they'd seen all year, calling it the perfect way to expose a policy nobody in the league office wanted to actually define out loud. Others thought two grown men mocking a women's league, even while insisting they were being respectful, crossed a line that shouldn't be crossed for a.
Are very upset after another NBA player identifies as a woman and is now declaring for the WNBA draft.
I'm transgender. I identify as sometimes identifying as a woman, declaring for the WNBA draft.
So yes, this is very true. We had Enes Freedom make the announcement yesterday, and we now have another former NBA player, Royce White, doing the same thing for the 2027 WNBA draft. Now, like I mentioned, a lot of people are very upset about this, so Royce White responded to this saying, I haven't even been publicly trans for 72 hours and I'm already getting so much hate. I just want to hoop with my girls in my feminine era. Why can't y'all be happy for me? Now, because of this, the WNBA announced that they are meeting to review what a woman is after recent events.
Punchline. Sponsors who'd already been nervous about the league's ongoing trans policy controversy started fielding calls from reporters asking point blank whether they'd stand by the WNBA through yet another public relations storm. A couple of smaller regional sponsors reportedly paused promotional campaigns entirely while they figured out which way the wind was blowing, and at least one national brand quietly pulled a scheduled ad rotation for the week, according to people close to the marketing side of the league. That's when Charles Barkley weighed in, and he did not hold back at all. Sitting on inside the NBA, Barkley called the entire situation absolutely outrageous. But here's the part that made people actually stop scrolling and pay attention. He wasn't just mad at Cantor and White for making the video. He was mad at the WNBA for putting itself in a position where two guys with legitimate NBA resumes could make a serious-sounding legal argument for why they belong in a women's league in the first place. Y'all did this to yourselves, Barkley said, pointing out that a league can't spend months publicly refusing to define who's actually eligible to play and then act shocked when people take that vagueness and run with it as far as it can go. He added that the entire situation could have been avoided with one clear written policy months ago, and that the league's silence is what created the opening.
I do not, under any circumstances, under zero, think that men should play sports against women. And if anybody have a problem with that, they're going to have to get over it, because I'm not going to change I just think it's wrong, period. If people disagree with me, I'm good with that. Hey, we disagree. Yeah. I'm not mad at you. I don't hate you. I'm not going to call you names, because that's just silly and stupid. But I'm never going to think it's all right for men to play sports against women. And I don't even think that's controversial. That's the thing that's funny. Like some of this stuff make, like when you see these debates on television, I'm like, yeah, men shouldn't play sports against women. I'm done. I don't want to hear you try to explain it to me. No, I don't want to hear it. I'm not going to argue with you. Men shouldn't play sports against women. I'm done. There's a lot of we can argue over. That ain't.
Barkley wasn't the only respected voice from the sports world to jump into this. Shaquille O'Neal, appearing on his own podcast just a day later, said he found the whole controversy kind of funny and kind of sad. At the same time, pointing out that Cantor and White had essentially forced a national conversation that reporters had been tiptoeing around for months. Former NFL linebacker Brian Urlacher, who doesn't usually comment on WNBA storylines at all, posted that he didn't understand why people were mad at the messenger instead of the actual message. A line that got quoted across dozens of sports pages within hours. Kendrick Perkins took a slightly more careful tone on ESPN, saying he understood why some players felt mocked, but that dismissing the underlying question entirely wasn't going to make it disappear, and that the league needed a real answer, not another statement full of vague language about respect and inclusion.
Brian, what do you think of these NBA players?
Oh, I think it's awesome. I think if they want to be inclusive, the WNBA, these coaches that have been coming out speaking against Sophie have been saying they're the most inclusive league there is. We're about to find out, right? I think they should let these guys go in the draft whatever they identify as, let them go into the draft and see what happens.
Yeah, I think so. You are really a legend in football. You're a Hall of Famer. You played in the league for more than a decade. And I was actually surprised when I saw you standing up for Sophie Cunningham because we don't hear this often. What made you stand up for Sophie?
I just think it's a common sense issue. It's an 80-20 issue. It goes pretty much our way. I just don't understand why it's even a discussion. There should not be men and women's sports. It's just common sense, right? I mean, biologically we're different. I think that's pretty well noted. People know that for the most part. I guess they have to have it explained to them sometimes, but it's not even an issue. Men should not be playing versus women. Shouldn't be in the locker room. Shouldn't be anywhere around them when they're...
Understand why this landed the way it did? You have to go back a few weeks before any of this started. The whole controversy kicked off when Fever guard Sophie Cunningham said in a simple interview answer that she wanted to protect young girls in sports and didn't think biological men should compete against women. That single comment set off a chain reaction across the entire league, with players and coaches picking sides in real time on live television and social media. Minnesota Lynx head coach Cheryl Reeve became one of the loudest voices on the other side of that debate, publicly and repeatedly saying she supports trans inclusion in the league, going as far as wearing a shirt that read "Trans kids belong courtside" during a nationally televised game against Cunningham's own team.
I had to come out and say it. I'm transgender, and I'd like to pursue a career in the WNBA in all women's sports. I mean, pick one, but the WNBA is probably most suitable. I just, for me personally, I hear a lot of people talk about us transgenders as sort of enigma. But nobody's really willing to just say, no, we're not doing it. We're done. Fuck off. And, why wouldn't I continue to pursue a WNBA career until the day when people finally put some guardrails back around common sense, logic, reason, the truth.
Reeve didn't soften her position at all once the cameras were on her. "I come from a space of inclusion," she told reporters. "The narrative that I think is problematic is to suggest that transgender athletes are the biggest problem in women's sports, that we need to protect trans kids. To me, it's a human rights issue. Every kid has a right to sports." That comment, made just one day before Cunningham's team came to town, is a big part of why people like Cantor and White insist they weren't just randomly picking a fight with a women's league for attention. They point directly at coaches like Reeve and say, "This is exactly what you asked for, that we're simply following the logic." All the way through to its natural conclusion that if self-identification is genuinely the standard, they argue, then the standard applies to everyone who declares it, not just the people the league finds convenient.
So, my views, As I said last week, I come from a space of inclusion, and the narrative that I think that is problematic is to suggest that number one, that transgender athletes are the biggest problem in women's sports, and I think this is what's bothersome. Is that there's a faction of people in our country that are making this a massive issue. We have some issues. Number one, we need to protect trans kids. Every kid, to me, it's a human rights issue. Every kid has a right to sports, regardless of gender diverse, transgender. Every kid has the right to access. Now, what gets nuanced is, when you're beyond puberty, when you're an Olympic sport, when you have scholarships, that sort of thing. That's where I say that common sense people get together and you find common ground to find a way to be inclusive. The answer.
Even as Smith piled on too, and not gently at all, he spent nearly 15 minutes on his own show ripping into Reeve for wearing that shirt, saying it was an irresponsible thing that didn't consider how it affects the collective brand of the WNBA and how they may be frowned upon by half of America. Smith made a point that's been echoed all over sports media since that segment aired. You can support people's rights and still believe biological men shouldn't compete against women in professional sports, and those two positions aren't actually mutually exclusive no matter how the debate gets framed online. That's the exact same argument Barkley was making days later, just delivered with Smith's usual volume and intensity, and it's part of why the two of them, despite their very